I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey with your Our News Now Rewind. Stories making headlines for the week ending February 26, 2011. Our top stories include: the president makes a shift as the government drops its defense of anti-gay marriage legislation. In Chicago, former White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel cruises to victory in his run for mayor. In New York, an anti-abortion sign targeting the black community creates a stir. A Saudi student is arrested in an alleged plot to kill former President George W. Bush. The world watches as a revolution sweeps through Libya, and a man who thought he was white tells America about the day he became black. Our top story. In a major shift, the Obama administration has said it will no longer defend anti-gay marriage legislation. This happens less than 2 months after the administration and Congress agreed to repeal its ban on openly gay military service members. In a letter to Congress, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder said the administration had determined that the act, which was passed by Congress in 1996, discriminated against gays and therefore could no longer be accepted as reasonable. Holder said that Congress may wish to appoint its own lawyers to defend the law, which bars the federal government from recognizing same-sex marriages or extending them the same benefits granted to heterosexual unions.
Let me also make clear, however, that the United States government will still be a party to those cases in order to allow those cases to proceed so that the courts can make the final determination about its constitutionality.
Well, conservatives have criticized the White House for entering into what some have described as an unnecessary foray into a hot-button social issue. Well, investigators say they have arrested a Saudi Arabian student who was studying in West Texas in an alleged plot to kill former President George W. Bush. According to court documents, Khalid Ali M. Al-Dosari indicated in online research and in a journal that he was considering attacking the Dallas home of former President George W. Bush, as well as hydroelectric dams, nuclear power plants, nightclubs, and soldiers who were formerly stationed at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Mr. Al-Dosari, a business major at South Plains College in Lubbock, Texas, is in the United States legally on student visa. That's according to the FBI. He came to the government's attention on February 1st when a North Carolina supply company reported that he tried to order 5 liters of a chemical that can be used to make a deadly explosive. A subsequent investigation found that he had already obtained large supplies of other chemicals needed to make the explosive compound. According to the affidavit, he wrote in his journal that he wanted to create a new terrorist group modeled after Al-Qaeda. In Chicago, former White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel cruises to victory in his run to become that city's next mayor. He defeated former Chicago Schools President Jerry Chico, former Senator Carol Moseley Braun, the only black candidate running, and City Clerk Miguel DeValle. Emanuel did it by getting more than 50% of the vote. The 51-year-old Emanuel, who worked for Barack Obama for 2 years and served 3 terms representing Chicago's North Side in the House of Representatives, will be that city's first Jewish mayor. 2 sisters from Mississippi who had their life sentences commuted so they could take part in a life-saving kidney transplant are both too heavy to move forward with the medical procedure and meet the requirements of their prison release. 38-year-old Jamie Scott is supposed to receive a kidney from her younger sister, 36-year-old Gladys. But they've been told by doctors they have to lose a combined 160 pounds before they can even be tested for compatibility. Jamie and Gladys Scott, who've been in jail for 16 years, were freed on January 7th because Jamie suffers from kidney failure. They were convicted in 1994 for a robbery that netted a mere $11 and were the focus of an internet movement to free them because of the severity of their punishment. A New York anti-abortion ad has been pulled from sight after it created a stir. The ad targeted African Americans and said the most dangerous place for them was inside the womb. The billboard was paid for by a Texas-based group called Life Always. The group has put up several controversial signs with similar messages across the country in recent months. The ad in Lower Manhattan was seen by thousands of passers-by.
I mean, this organization, if they really care about pro-life issues and they really care about black people and black women, they should then be in the neighborhoods. They should be in the schools, be in the colleges, be outside the clubs. You know what I'm saying? They should be in those neighborhoods giving outreach. This doesn't do anything but create anger. This is not going to stop abortion. You know what I mean? It's not even, it's just going to make people angry. I don't know if it even creates pro-life awareness.
Life Always released a statement that said, quote, it strongly disagrees with Lamar Outdoors' decision to remove the billboard, but the billboard's message holds true that abortion is outpacing life in the black community. Well, a movement to declare the first African-American Catholic priest a saint has taken another step. The canonization of Father Augustus Tolton has entered another phase in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Tolton was born into slavery in the 18th century. After being rejected by all American ceremonies, Tolton went to study in Italy in 1880. Going back to America, he was ordered to serve in Chicago, where he was forbidden to preach to whites. He started several Catholic parishes in the tenements and projects. He died of a heat stroke at the age of 43. His proponents say that he's an example of persistence and faith. In your Hour News Now World Wrap, revolution continues to sweep through Libya as leader Muammar Gaddafi continues to control his country, but has lost his grip on several major cities. After bloody clashes with militia forces, Libya's second largest city, Benghazi, is now in control of opposition forces trying to drive Gaddafi from power. It's estimated that more than 1,000 people have been killed in clashes with forces loyal to Gaddafi. Meanwhile, rumors of the strongman being shot sent oil prices up. The Swiss government has frozen Gaddafi assets, and now Gaddafi blames al-Qaeda for influencing the young people of Libya. The U.S., for its part, has not ruled out military intervention by Western countries. In the Ivory Coast, the largest U.S. purchaser of coca from that country has stopped buying the commodity at the request of one of the two men who both claim to be president. Alassane Ouattara has asked for the embargo of coca, which continues to provide funds to the government of Laurent Gbagbo. Ouattara is the internationally recognized leader of the Ivory Coast after a contested election there last fall. Gbagbo, who was the president going into that election, has refused to step down. Fears of an all-out civil war in the region were raised last week after a battle between soldiers who claim loyalty to both sides. Off the coast of Somalia, the U.S. Navy is investigating the deaths of 4 U.S. citizens who were killed while in the hands of Somali pirates who seized their pleasure boat on a worldwide sailing trip. California residents Scott and Jean Adam were accompanied by Phyllis McKay and Bob Riggle of Seattle. The last safe port for this trip was Mumbai, India, before their ship was boarded on February 18th. The U.S. Navy had surrounded the vessel and was negotiating the release of the Americans when they died. U.S. forces stormed the ship and captured more than a dozen Somalis while killing 2 others. This is the first time Americans have been killed since Somali raids gained international attention 6 years ago. That's your World Wrap. In sports news, a man who could be a #1 NFL draft pick says that he's an icon before he's played even one professional down. Cam Newton from Auburn University told Sports Illustrated's Peter King, quote, "I see myself not only as a football player, but as an entertainer and icon." The Heisman Trophy winner made the bold statement just ahead of the NFL Combines, which are physical tests of potential players who are looking to go pro. Newton has said he would do whatever was asked of him during the testing event to prove that he can play at the pro level. The NFL Draft is April 26th. A man who spent his entire life thinking he was white is now crisscrossing the country in a one-man play, talking about the time that he discovered he was actually black. Actor Michael Fosberg is the writer of the book Incognito, An American Odyssey of Race and Self-Discovery. It details the revelation of his real father's African-American heritage during the divorce of his mother and stepfather. The book was turned into a play, which in one scene he describes the first phone call to his real father.
Did you live in the Boston area in 1957? Yes, I did. Were you married to a woman by the name of Adrian Pilposian? Yes, I was.
Fosberg also discovered his father had a rich history, as his grandfather was a renowned scientist and his great-grandfather was a member of the famed Massachusetts 54th, the first U.S. Black Regiment. And finally, the animation world is mourning the loss of a man who for some was a literal hero and stood out in the comic book universe. Dwayne McDuffie has died. The Detroit native was a highly respected comic book and animation writer and was the co-founder of Milestone Media, a landmark company that created a multicultural comic book line that introduced black superheroes such as Hardware and Static. McDuffie had stints working for Marvel and DC Comics, as well as several television series, but his lasting legacy will be Milestone, which diversified an industry in which almost all the characters and writers were exclusively white. For a complete look at any of the stories you've seen on The Rewind, remember, as always, go to the bottom of the webpage, find the link of the story you'd like to see, and click your way through. That's your Our News Now Rewind for this week. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey.